we lack moments in design, and it's not afraid to get her hands dirty. Please welcome Bhawika Mishra. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Johan. I'm so honored to be presenting my thesis in today's academic summit. Just a bit of introduction about myself. I'm an experiential designer at 212 and have a master's from FIT in exhibition and experience design. I come from India, and today I'll be presenting my thesis. So I will go ahead and share my screen.
Are you able to share your screen? You should be able.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Nadia. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. So hello and welcome to my thesis presentation. This is a thesis and exhibition project that analyzes the use of social media with a focus on subject of hashtag, and hence this graphic that you see called Connected. And the name of the exhibition is hashtag Connected. So going into my thesis statement, so it kind of explores social media and its influence of society and how it has become such an ingrained part of our lives. And this further investigates new ways to initiate a social connection and provide a design framework, which is intended to allow people to form meaningful connections in the physical world by understanding their fundamentals of social media practices. So to support my thesis and my research, I started with a prototype which consisted of interactive activity using the Miro board. And this is a demo which I set up for 12 participants, wherein I had all these images and all participants were provided with this demo board where they had this collection of different hashtags under different categories and all had the same images to look at. So for the round one, where each participant were asked to go to their board and observe the board and relate to the images and tag different hashtag words from the pool, or maybe use their own to describe the images that they see on the board. And then in the second round, they were asked to move around and go to other boards and then leave comments if they had any certain relation or felt a need to change certain things. So it basically was a simulation of social media practices, like how do we scroll through image feeds and comment on different posts. So this is wherever you see all these sticky notes, these were comments from other people. So this prototype helped me conclude my research, and I was able to verify my observations that various participants had never used hashtags before, and they felt that hashtags were more about promoting and giving a shout out. And then people who used to use hashtag would do it to garner more comments and likes on their posts. And it was kind of enlightening to know and realize for other participants to realize the consequences that comments, likes, shares have on different people, and how different sets of people have a very different perspective and take on the same content, And one very interesting feature was participants felt happy to come back to their boards and see there was a comment waiting for them. At the same time, on the contrasting hand, a lot of them felt vulnerable, seeing comments left by others, and they felt a bit exposed. And then there were certain improvements that I would want to move forward as I research into it more. I felt that since the participants that I had knew each other, it would be interesting to know, to have participants who did not know each other. And then since it was a limited number of participants, it would be great to have many participants to highlight the complexities of social media and human connection. So based on my research and testing, I was able to hone down into this particular big idea of hashtags and how hashtag has been around us, guiding us on our social media, and how it has been affecting our lives, maybe through social media activism, or how we use social hashtags on our posts to convey our emotions. So using my thesis research and the prototype testing conclusions, I was able to use this big idea of hashtag to tell stories and unleash the power to connect, engage, and grow in a safe digital space by understanding and cultivating the use of hashtag as a tool that brings people closer together. So this whole exhibition is based on the perspective of hashtag, and hashtag is telling its own story. So I was able to define certain goals based on my thesis and research. So there are various project, education, and experience goals where people would learn about the human connection in this era of technology and how to empower community to connect with their interests and passion, just like how hashtag words bring together the same kind of content. And the education goals would be learning more about the meanings of hashtag and where did it really come from and how it is affecting our conversation styles and the sentiment analysis and the brand activation and the marketing strategies that hashtags incorporate. And for the experience goal, the activities would be promoting dialogues about a sense of community and a deeper connection, and also understand the psychological aspects of hashtag. And this exhibition, Hashtag Connected, is focusing on the client, that is Instagram, because Instagram is one of the platforms that uses multiple hashtags. And this exhibit is based in Bethesda Terrace, Central Park, New York, because of its very Instagrammable nature and the seamless nature and the open structure of it, and is focused on Generation Z because they are the ones who've been using social media and have born into the World Wide Web. So from all my research, I honed down into concepts which were like how hashtag is an emotion, how it's being used in marketing, influencers, and brands, and telling the story of hashtag, how did it come from Twitter, the social media, and the exponential generation, and what is the purpose of it, and how it has come to identify a new language of like self-identity, of being on the point and defining certain tones and the sarcasm, and how it is being used in popular culture. Maybe it's like the activism, the political, the micro blogging. And then overlaying all these concepts into my space, this is a seamless journey of the user wherein they would be provided with the different methodologies on the social media, which is like the filtering and the unfiltering, and how do we analyze and visualize certain content on social media, and using those same methodologies to let my visitors move around seamlessly in the space. So this is the first area where is the hashtag is born, and this exhibition is being carefully designed to have the word connected as a very typographic installations, and the archway structure, which is made up of word to attract, being as the main attraction point. So people are encouraged to take a picture with this, have an Instagram moment, and walk between the space. And it is very intentional to have this kind of structure, because how social media in a way is revealing and hiding our identities, so is the structure, which has certain moments of revealing and hiding, as well as play of light and shadow. So it works in combining the contrasting elements. And in this particular part, they learn about how hashtag became so popular and how its function and purposes evolved over time and where it is being used. As they move, it comes into a popular culture where this is a mix of nostalgia and the retro phones, which they see hanging from the ceiling. And all of these phones are connected to certain hashtag words, and there's a use of lighting in this particular part of the activity and people are encouraged to take a particular phone and hear what this particular hashtag word, which is kind of associated with it, and learn its story and know more about when this, for example, how did hashtag love started being used and how many times it has been used and how people are using it on a daily basis. Then comes a part where it's called It's an Emotion, which is under the Bethesda Terrace Archway, and it is a whole immersive tech-based installation. And it has dynamically generated hashtag words and numbers, and people are encouraged to relax, interact, and immerse themselves in this exhibit. And they would be provided with a application hashtag connected to write their own hashtags and send it into the space. And also it kind of generates dynamic feed based on how people are constantly using hashtags on social media. And this is the hashtag connected app where they're encouraged to use scan a barcode and voice their own hashtags. So as you might have noticed, that was the previous exhibit was more digital and immersive and a very controlled. In the similar way, I have another exhibit which is called Under the Walkway, wherein I have created stencil-like hashtag words in the archway. And because of the natural light and shadow, and since this exhibit is also in the open and a closed space, people would experience the play of light and shadow, and visitors will see the shadow of hashtag words on the stairs, and the walkway has hashtag word cuts out on the ceiling, which will cast shadow on the ground. And they are encouraged to reflect on how they meet with different words as they walk on stairs. And this is more like a physical simulation of how people are constantly under the influence of hashtag words while on social media or any other virtual platform. And visitors would be learning and internalizing their feelings of being surrounded with so many hashtag words in this era, and it's to motivate them to get interested and learn how hashtag has become such a big part of their lives. So this is just a small scaled model version of how I intend this exhibit to take place and how this play of light and shadow would give them an immersive feeling. So in conclusion, I would like to say that hashtag is such a powerful tool, and from its first use by Chris Messina, the former Twitter CEO, who used hashtag for a very different purpose of tagging content, and now how hashtag has evolved so much to connect, promote, or call to action and engage and provide visibility to people who use it. And it has now become a tool where you can do sentiment analysis on how people are feeling and how cultures are being affected and how it has affected the language. And now it has also been used in activism. But at the same time, it is so important that we are aware and know very well how this tool is so powerful and to be used in the most meaningful way to form human connections.
Oh, I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
it's all okay. But I'd like to let you know that we have 3 minutes more. Thank you.
Thank you. So in conclusion, I just wanted to make my audience conscious of their day-to-day actions in this hybrid space, using the tools like hashtag to aid in better decision-making and foster a meaningful human connection. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bhawika. It was an excellent presentation. Congratulations for all the presenters for these excellent presentations. Thank you for all your work to share with this panel multisensory, physical plus digital engagement. So now it's time for question and answer. We are welcome to questions from the audience to the panelists. Also, we have 2 questions. Chabel, do you have something to say? Yeah.
Well, I'd like to ask actually, Deborah Satterfield. Deborah, do you want to just turn on your video and ask a couple of questions? You had a great question for Jungju about his prototype process.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hello, Jungal.
Hi.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm also a programmer and a designer, so I really love what
nice.
you're doing. I also do work in disability areas and have done testing of games and things on persons with neurodiversity and differences in physical and cognitive abilities. So I was curious if you tested, because those aspects of any exhibit are really meaningful to persons who rely less on spoken word and written word. So did you test your games with persons with neurodiversity and physical cognitive differences? And if so, what did you find?
I do test. I haven't tested with any audience with neural. What was the word again?
Like neurodiversity, like examples might
yes.
be like Down syndrome, autism, things, you know, those kind of things.
Unfortunately, I haven't got to, but the accessible kind of aspect of the game design was definitely part of the design considerations. But we didn't have enough time to push the universal design aspects of the game as much as I can, because it kind of was it was brought to an abrupt halt. But we do kind of test it with an audience who's has like color blindness, and that's very interesting like condition, because the whole game is based on being able to recognize the colors. So I do, and we do have like come up with a workaround, is that we can potentially put patterns, like different patterns on different colors as a workaround. And then the other thing is that we realized the most common color blindness is red green blindness. So even if we can just cover that, it will get us a long way. So that's
I had two suggestions. Try some with different heights of the basket hoop. And the other one, it would be easily adaptable to a table tray on a wheelchair with a different kind of like adaptive thing where you could roll like marbles into buckets and still interface with your game in an adaptive fashion. So that's just weird stuff that comes to my mind.
Yeah, I like that. But definitely it has to, like, we don't get to have too much of those audience. I mean, personally, I would love to push the accessible limits of the game as much as we can, but we kind of have to kind of cross that bridge when we come to it.
It's like the movie, if you build it, they will come. But thank you. You did a marvelous job. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that question. Yeah, it's definitely one of the next step if we were to keep iterating on the game. So
terrific. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was an excellent conversation. I think Deb, you have another question to Bhawika Mishra. So Deb, can you ask the question directly? Oh, I may. Yes, can you?
There you go. Yeah. I love that the second presentation as well was fabulous. And my question is, do people from different cultures or different generational groups use hashtags differently and think about them different than maybe younger generations that grew up with them? What was did you have any findings on that?
Thanks, Doug, for the question. So it's a very interesting question, because the participant group that I was user testing on, it was 12 people, and they were all people from my exhibition design program, and they all came from different countries.
Oh, wow.
And since I had provided them with like the similar images and similar hashtags, it was very interesting to see that everybody related in a very different manner, and what perspectives they had from their culture, and that's how they related very differently to each and every image. And my next step definitely would be to test it among people from different age ranges. The demographic that I used was mostly from 19 to 25. But the sense, the culture does affect, and how you perceive the things that you take from your culture are definitely change the way you look at a certain image and how you kind of respond and interact with it.
It's fascinating work, fascinating in terms of a new language and a digital kind of language. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, it was an excellent question and answers. And I'm looking for more questions from the audience. Do you have any question? You can put your question on the chatting window, or you can ask us directly.
I wanted to, I know you have some questions. I wanted to ask a question for Bhawika. Bhawika, is there a resource that you can go to see what the trending and impact is of different hashtags, or how they're trending, weekly or monthly or annually? Where did you tap into for resources like that when you were doing your research?
So it was quite difficult to find this particular way to like see how hashtags is trending, and since it's been like adding a lot more, but then certain observations I would like to share is how hashtags is being used as a call to action or an emergency way for people in certain areas, or maybe like refugees, how they use it to bring attention to them. And also like in terms of also the time when I started this particular, this thesis was during the Black Lives Matter movement that was happening, and how hashtag BLM became so prominent. Also like hashtag Me Too, but at the same time we were and it was COVID, so it was like hashtag COVID, and how people gather attention towards a lot of issues that require immediate or urgent need and need of assistance. But definitely, as I research more into it, I would love to share or curate something where I can show digitally and how hashtags are being used, and its use in the popular culture or activism, or just in general.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talk a lot about impact and experience design, but that is something that would be interesting. I was curious if there was one place that you could go to. So thank you. Well, I'm going to turn it back over to you because I see we've got a couple more questions in the chat.
Thank you, Shabel, that Jong-woo and Bhawika, that I have a question to your project. Do you have any stories to share beyond your formal presentation relate to your project that you may not be able to share through formal presentation? How was that? Everything was going well? What was so difficult? And I hope to learn about background story of these projects. So Jong-woo, can you share your real challenges that you may not be able to share through formal presentation?
I think I do cover most of the stories that I can share about Color Crush. If I have to share anything I didn't talk about in the presentation, is that like I said, I worked with that color sensors before. That was way back ago in a school project, and I adopted a totally different approach where I started with technology. I thought the color sensor was really cool. I really want to create an experience out of that color sensors. And then I created a prototype and then throw in the narrative as an afterthought. And that whole school project was kind of a disaster. But then even that experience, it's still kind of just, I just keep that in the back of my mind. And when I came into this gaming exhibit, it immediately occurred to me, oh, now that piece of technology, even though it's a failure lesson, now it's a perfect piece of technology to recontextualize and to bring it into a science museum world. So I guess my takeaway is that it's okay to fail sometimes, and everything that you've tried, that you've learned, they can all come back to you in another occasion in a surprising way. So don't be afraid to explore around and try out different approaches, even though it sometimes doesn't work, but they can all be part of your repertoire of tools and inspirations that can become part of your inspirations for for something that's actually meaningful. So.
Great, thank you for sharing your experience with us today. And we are going to be Bhawika. Can you share the experience or any story that you were not able to include in your formal presentation?
Yeah, definitely. So during this thesis research, we were, it happened during the time when we were in a lockdown and during the COVID. And then as my research states that I was trying to build this bring the digital experience into a physical environment. So some of the challenges I would say was doing all of the thesis research, prototyping, the model making, and all of that digitally. And as much as it was challenging, it was interesting to explore and learn new tools like Miro to simulate certain social media practices. And I would say that the challenge came like a lot of learning and exploration into what more is available out there and how the digital tools could be used for your own benefit. So that was my like biggest takeaway.
Excellent, thank you. So let me check if we have any question from the audience.
I think we have one from Colleen. Colleen, do you want to turn your video on and ask? Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you. I wasn't ready with the background or anything, but yeah, I have a question. I was wondering, Jungu, you said that you, when you were hired at MSI, you were like immediately put to work for this project. And, you know, although it hit some roadblocks over COVID, do you feel, in your opinion, that these kinds of like creative, interactive gaming programs are, you know, something that a lot of museums are going to be continuing to look at, or maybe MSI is a specific one? I work for an archaeology museum right now that is as old-fashioned as some of the objects inside of it at times. So I was just wondering what are your thoughts for this in the future in museums?
Okay, first off, I did travel a lot of museums and try to talk to their staff, but I didn't really done any official extensive survey about what museums are thinking about incorporating creative technologies as their internal design resource. But I do know that for the mega type of museums like Exploratorium, the Met, and the Natural Histories Museum in New York, they all have some sort of design specialist staff in-house. So I would have to say it's definitely a trend. And that's also kind of the purpose of my paper, is try to encourage museums to see the creative potential of including design technology as like a really creative, as a powerful interactive medium that can really bring a lot of innovations and changes, and it kind of disrupt the experience model a little bit, because we are competing with a increasingly growing experience economies with immersive exhibits like all over the place. So we're constantly competing for people's attention. So I'm not saying technology is a solutions to all the answers, but it's just one of the tools that can be that you can incorporate under your belts and push more of your experiential possibilities on the floor. I know that doesn't answer your questions, but
no, that's a great answer. Yeah, I was going to say as well, like just competing after COVID as well, like across the board, a lot of museum attendance is down because people are just like aren't used to it, have forgotten, whatever the reasons are. It's kind of unclear, but yeah, getting people back in the door is also like a huge push as well, and introducing new things in your exhibit. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I think Adam had a question. Adam Newman. If Adam wants to. Hi, Adam.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you all? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great.
It's been a long time since I've been involved in SEGD, and I'm very excited to be back. I've
We're
started.
happy you're back.
Yay! I started teaching over the last year at Tulane, and I'm very, very interested in means of representation, how your beautiful renderings were made. Everyone seems to sort of cobble together. Well, some cobble together, and some are, masters of the art. And so I was curious if everybody or anybody could tell me their favorite way to represent what's in their mind's eye.
Thanks, Adam, for the question. I can jump in. And so some of the tools that I used to render construct was like SketchUp, and then one interesting tool that I used was Twinmotion for rendering, which has a very realistic way of rendering lighting or material for my SketchUp models. And then just photoshopping certain of those rendered images to like bring them to perfection.
Thank you. So Photoshop in the end becomes the thing that pulls it all together on some level.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm mostly a creative technologist. I don't do much with creating beautiful renderings for concepts. But again, like I'm pretty much a generalist, so Photoshop is my go-to options just because in terms of creating rendering, you can be creative about how you use those assets. And if you're really well versed with Photoshop, you can work out the magics in some way to create whatever you want. But know a little bit of 3D modeling and rendering, I think it really goes a long way. That's just my my cases. So.
I see Daphne added that they're teaching students Rhino and Unity beyond SketchUp, and that some are learning Blender and Cinema 4D. I think this is so challenging. I have a daughter who's in design also, and there's there isn't one software program, and
in my program
for the students who are going out to get a real job, like Bhawika recently, and maybe they didn't use the software in school that they're being asked to use at their job.
Right. In my program, they teach a lot of Rhino, but they're finding that when they get into the professional world, that nobody touches Rhino. So, or hard to say. But anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, so we have around 9 minutes to finalize this panel. That if we don't have more questions from the audience, I think it would be a right time to ask Bhawika and Jung-woo a question that, do you have any future plans related with your current project? Jung-woo, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. As I've already mentioned in the Q&A, I think the accessibility of my game is definitely gonna be a top priority of my next plan, because I do come across audience with particularly color blindness, and I was able to kind of come up clever ways by just swapping out some of the colors of the ball so that they don't get, again, the most common cases is red, green, color blindness. So if I can just swap out green with blue, for example, and then use purple for something else, that'll pretty much solve the problems. But I definitely have to be able to be engaged with more people with varying abilities and capabilities to be able to really figure out that equations. But that's going to be a challenge with the exhibits kind of paused and without any further resources to get in touch with this kind of audience. But I'm definitely personally would love to, if I were given the resources, I would love to push the aspects. So.
So actually, this is the last question, but I want to ask this question to Jung-woo before I go to Bhawika, that for your future possible plan, do you have any supporting system, or do you have any plan to initiate and incubating your supporting system for your plan? So what kind of supporting system resources you would need to move forward this project beyond you?
That's a question for me, or?
Yes, it's a question to you. Yeah.
Any research? Do you mean research supporting system for research, or?
Yeah, because you want to move forward to the test and more advanced level of the research for users. That do you have any supporting system or opportunity to work with the existing system?
You mean keep iterating on the game in the future, or?
You might collaborate with museums or any yeah.
That's still up in the air. I do, when I was presenting at GDC, there is a local museums about digital games that got in touch with me, but they hasn't opened yet, but it was an interesting conversation. I'll definitely follow up with them. And then there are some interesting suggestions from the audience where they thought it'll be a good idea to play this game in a bar or an arcade. It's just it seems like it's just, it looks like a natural fit and like a entertaining venues like that. So maybe I'll do an elevator pitch to a bar next time I stop by. But nothing super clear at the moment. But I'll definitely try to keep pushing that conversation, because it is a valuable learning opportunities at least, and I do think we can make the most out of it.
Surely.
Bhawika, I wanted to ask one last question to Bhawika. So now that you've moved from graduate student to, working at a job, have you taken any of the applications of thinking about how you can crowdsource research, or are you thinking at all about that in the work that you're doing now?
Yes, definitely. I am thinking about it in the work that I'm doing, since I'm kind of working more on like wayfinding and signage projects, but I'm trying to like develop this thesis project hashtag and more towards using like augmented reality or digital platforms. And how one of the ideas that I would like to share is how, when we look around and then just changing the lens and just changing the lens rather than having buildings being called by their particular names or streets, how about having hashtags associated with each and different zones, the sections or the streets, and how when you move around, how certain hashtags kind of pop up. And my next step definitely is like including the AR, augmented reality maybe. So which is I'm kind of testing using the Adobe Aero software and like projecting all these hashtag words on certain objects in the space to map and wayfind your wayfind.
Bhawika, I hope that you're able to stay for the breakout this afternoon for the 50th, because we've been brainstorming about how we could do that for our conference in Washington, D.C. to connect with all of the experience design. So there might be something there. Deborah, do you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add one thing, thinking about the hashtags and visual wayfinding. This may not be obvious to everybody, because I know it wasn't to the researchers I was working with, but persons with neurodivergency, such as dyslexics, can't use traditional wayfinding strategies at all. And emerging and human-centered strategies and strategies like you're talking about with AR, VR, and perhaps other kinds of cues are huge. And I think that's something that the neurotypical population are very oblivious to. And it almost
Mhm.
falls under that microaggressions that they deal with on the daily. So you might look into that. There could be some very interesting territory for you to research based on what you're doing already. Thank you.
Actually,
Thank you
Deborah,
so
I
much.
see that as a great topic. Maybe I will tap into some people for a future webinar.
Yeah.
I think our community would be really interested in that, especially if there's some projects or case studies that would be helpful. To
Yeah, I
learn.
have a student with one that used a different strategy. Yeah, it's interesting territories, Sybil.
Great. Well, first of all, I want to thank our presenters, Bhavika and Junju and Naz. And I know I'm sorry because Naz's family has COVID, and I just want to send good vibes out there that they all recoup. But I'm so glad. Thank you, FIT team, for pulling the video together so that we could still share her project. And it was a really interesting one also. And I want to thank Professor An. Thank you, Yeo. We're actually you're going to be presenting after we come back from the break. So thank you for moderating and for introducing our speakers. And so we're going to take a 15-minute break. And what I'd like to let everybody know is that this Zoom will be open